When I tell myself that I love being wrong, that is admittedly a kind of coping mechanism that I use to help me deal with the reality that I'm wrong a lot. And I'm wrong a lot for a lot of various reasons, but I have one particular life strategy that I think causes me to be wrong more often than usual. You see, the way that I approach problem solving is with a kind of rapid fire technique, which allows me to iterate through possible solutions very quickly and rule them off as they don't work. In my profession, I often get to help people problem solve technical issues. And what happens a lot of times is that someone approaches me with a problem, they've exhausted the solutions that they're willing to attempt, and they're hoping that I can provide them with the correct solution. In truth, many times I do not know the correct solution any more than they do. However, I jump in, I begin trying solutions, I cross them off as they don't work, and I move on. And I like to tell the people that I'm helping that I don't necessarily know the right answer, but we can find everything that doesn't work together, and then maybe we'll both know the right answer for next time. I basically get to be professionally wrong. Telling myself that I love being wrong may or may not truly reflect how I feel on the matter, but it helps me to create a mental framework that allows me to routinely be wrong without getting my feelings hurt. Basically, I know that being wrong is part of the process of growth. And I think to myself, if I'm not making mistakes and I'm not crossing off incorrect ideas, then I'm not trying enough new things. So this is where I get the idea that I love being wrong. In my mind, being wrong means that I have a new piece of information, the incorrect answer, and that I'm making progress toward more complete and accurate knowledge. So I'd like to note at this point that I'm not some sort of problem-solving superstar, and in fact, I'm done talking about myself. What I'd like to do is explore this mental framework of putting a value on being wrong in the hopes that maybe someone else will find it useful. So here it goes. I think that many people have a tendency to view being right and being wrong as a zero-sum game, and that tendency is a detriment to the problem-solving process. In a zero-sum game, one person's gain is exactly equal to another person's loss. If I bet you $1 that circumstance A will result in outcome X, and the actual outcome proves to be Y, then I will lose $1, and you will gain $1. No new wealth or utility has been created or lost. The total net of the transaction is zero. In terms of being right or wrong, a zero-sum situation might look like this. Let's say I believe it is going to rain tomorrow, and you believe that it is not. When tomorrow comes, if it does not rain, then I am wrong and you are right. In the grand ether of being right and wrong, I lose 1 point and you gain 1 point. The fact of raining or not raining does not have an inherent value. It is not positive or negative. Maybe we were going golfing, maybe our crops needed water. The outcome does not have an intrinsic value. I was simply wrong and you were simply right. And I think that many people tend to view every opportunity that they have to be right or wrong as this zero-sum scenario. But let's say instead that I believe it is going to rain tomorrow, and you believe that it is not, but this time we're basing our beliefs off of some piece of evidence that we both have access to. We believe it is or isn't going to rain tomorrow based on the observation of a change in barometric pressure. When tomorrow comes, regardless of who is right and who is wrong, we both gain knowledge on the implications of the evidence we observed. Maybe one of us loses a point and one of us gains a point, but new wealth or utility is created by understanding the outcome of our predictions. Thus, we have a net positive, non-zero sum. In the 19th century, there was a physician and scientist who proposed that doctors not washing their hands prior to performing medical procedures was leading to the deaths of patients, specifically mothers giving birth. This physician observed that in a clinic wherein midwives performed births, there was a much lower rate of maternal mortality than a clinic operated only by physicians and medical students. He eventually concluded that this must be because the physicians and medical students often handled cadavers for autopsy purposes prior to performing the births, while the midwives did not. He believed that something about touching the dead bodies and then performing these medical procedures must have been causing the mortalities. But this man was ridiculed, and his ideas about hand washing were not widely adopted until after his death. This man's name was Ignaz Semmelweis, and today we have what we call the Semmelweis reflex, which roughly states that we tend to reject ideas that contradict established beliefs. Ignaz may have only had anecdotal evidence to support his claim, but he had an idea. So what kept his idea from being more readily explored? Well, for the sake of this discussion, could it be that the scientific community who opposed Semmelweis' idea viewed this opportunity to be right or wrong as a zero-sum game? In their mind, did they stand only to lose a point for Semmelweis' gaining of a point? Well, if so, then the scientific community who opposed Semmelweis' idea failed to see the potential for a net positive, non-zero-sum outcome of them being wrong. Think of this. Let's say there are 3 stages to being wrong. The first is where you are wrong, but you believe you are right. Nature knows you're wrong. Maybe some others believe you are wrong, but you believe you are right. You believe that 2 + 2 = 3. The third stage is where you know you were wrong. Nature knows, everybody knows now, and you have concluded through experimentation that you were in fact wrong. You have added 2 beans to a bin of 2 beans and found that the new total quantity of beans is 4. Well, then the second stage is where the danger lies. The second stage is where you are wrong, you still believe you are right, and you are acting on your wrong idea. You are accounting for transactions under the assumption that 2 + 2 = 3. The second stage is where you can make mistakes with grand repercussions. And the second stage is where you stay, so long as you believe you are playing a zero-sum game and you don't want to lose. The scientific community who opposed Semmelweis were stuck in this second stage of being wrong. They were wrong, but they believed they were right, and they were acting on their wrong idea. They didn't want to be wrong, but the fact of the matter is that if they had moved on to this third stage of being wrong, lives would have been saved. And the best part about the third stage of being wrong is that that's when you have the opportunity to be right. You get to move on from the wrong idea that you had, and maybe you get to be right from now on. The net positive, non-zero-sum nature of this transaction means that even though you were wrong, you now have a new piece of information, the incorrect answer, and you're making progress toward more complete and accurate knowledge. And we don't always have to be strictly wrong in order to fall victim to this mentality. We as humans struggle with a cognitive bias where we like our own ideas. When somebody presents a new idea that challenges or contradicts something that we work to create, sometimes we don't want that idea to work simply because it means that this person has an opportunity to be right about something. And that means that we're wrong, right? By denying the possibility that our idea or method should give way to something new, we think we're winning a zero-sum game. But the reality is that we're forcing everybody else to lose a non-zero-sum game. We're actually creating a net negative, non-zero-sum. You see, the other person loses a point because we say they're wrong, but we don't really gain a point because nothing's really changing. Plus, we're denying the new wealth or utility that could have been created by a new understanding. Players only lost. If we can systematically recognize our mistakes, setbacks, and wrong ideas to be natural and meaningful occurrences along a path toward greater understanding, then maybe we can react to these episodes better emotionally and mentally. And we can not only handle them emotionally and mentally better, but perhaps we can react with greater self-awareness in the moment. We can identify that second stage of being wrong, and we can recognize the potential for a net positive, non-zero sum. We can be wrong, and we can lose a point, knowing that new wealth or utility will be created by the new understanding. Maybe we won't love being wrong, but if we can start to see being wrong as something other than losing, maybe everyone can start to win a little bit more. Thank you.